Good evening, everybody. I'd like to call the November 18th school committee meeting to order. First order of business is the pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. First item is to ratify the agenda for the 18th, agenda for November 18th. May I have a motion?
Mr. Chair, I was to ratify the agenda for tonight.
Motion has been made to ratify the agenda. Is there a second motion?
Second.
Motion made by Nicole, seconded by by Jeff. Any discussion on the motion? Nicole? Hearing none, call for the vote. Jeff?
Yes.
John?
Yes.
Nicole?
Yes.
And George, yes. Next order of business, my favorite part of the meeting, our student representatives, Tyler Rempel.
Good evening. So the high school has started doing music video Mondays, and the first to be shared was a duet to All I Want, and it was sung by senior Alexia Grant and junior Cheyenne Hendricks, and it was really, really good. And so you can see it on the Twitter page of Mr. T and Miss Mills. So if you haven't already, it's really beautiful.
It's going on Friday.
Is it? And reminding us of a sense of normalcy, which has been really nice. We've had students on the morning announcements again at the high school, and we've had some members of the Wampanoag tribe sharing some words in their language, which has been pretty cool as well. The boys soccer team yesterday celebrated their senior night where they honored Ben Kennedy, Will Baker, Nathan Ware, Gabe Tellez, Gabe Pallas, Matthew Fish, Robbie Foster, Caesar Hendricks, and Jake Cutter. And they won that game against Falmouth 4-1. So that was a really good win last night. The National English Honor Society has been working to record screencastify readings of classic books for Mashpee elementary students to create a collection for our younger students to have in case they don't have someone at home to read with them. And so I just wanted to give a huge thanks to Ms. Finn and Jules Reynolds for kickstarting that. The National Art Honor Society has started up for the 20 to 21 school year, which celebrates talented high school artists. And so hopefully we can find some COVID-friendly ways to display their work as well, because it really is inspiring. Mashpee Golf celebrated their lone senior, Owen McGovern, last night as well with the boys on senior night. We have some committed high school athletes, which is really exciting. Junior Samantha Kersey is committed to playing soccer at Fairfield University. Senior Caroline Shields is committed to playing soccer at Nichols College. And senior Jagger Bryant is committed to playing baseball at Mass Maritime Academy. And so it's really cool to celebrate them because getting recruited by colleges shows that an athlete is really skilled and they're really dedicated. And so it's really cool to celebrate Mashpee athletes in that way. The Human Rights Club had a virtual field trip today, which was cool. It was held by multiple schools on the Cape where students talked about political views, microaggressions, social justice, cancel culture, racism, hate, and more. And students joined on a Zoom for this 2-hour meeting today with guest speakers and rich discussions. And there were 18 students represented from Mashpee, so there was a good representation of Mashpee there. There was the National Honor Society students who volunteered at Quashnet around Halloween for a fun and COVID-friendly costume parade, which was cool. And then I just had a question. I'm just not sure who decides this, but I know that my grade was supposed to take MCAS last year, and then we're gonna have to take it sometime this year. And it's going around that it would either be in January or May. And a lot of us are saying that we really don't want it to be in May because we have our AP exams in May. So we just that was kind of a rumor floating around, and so I didn't know who decided when we take MCAS.
It would be the state of Massachusetts.
It is.
We're hopeful that they might make a decision to not do that this year, but we're working on it.
To not do MCAS this year?
We're working on it. The superintendents are working on it. Cool. And I think the school committee is working on it as well.
Yeah, I think it was last weekend, the Massachusetts Association of School Committees unanimously, well, it wasn't unanimous, but it was overwhelmingly voiced our support for a resolution to not do MCAS this year. And the only argument that many school committee members were making in support of doing MCAS was that there's an Adams scholarship that is based on MCAS results, and they wanted to be sure that there was another mechanism in place for that scholarship to be made available to students. So, but there is a large statewide push for, all 300 plus districts in the Commonwealth to band together and kind of pressure the state to not allow that, to not have that this year. So, should we tell them that you want to take the test?
But if you have to take it, you prefer January.
Yeah. Over May.
All right. I will convey that we are given the opportunity.
Yeah.
Anything else?
I'm gonna stick around for a little bit.
Okay. Any other questions?
I just wanted to make a comment. I wanted to commend the student body for acting appropriately in this COVID environment and following the social distancing guidelines and gatherings, etc. Unlike what we've seen in some of the other surrounding school districts where they've had issues, Mashpee has done the right thing, and so I appreciate the student body doing that, and I look forward to them continuing to do that so that everyone will be safe in this trying time. So thank you very much. And you can express my sentiments to the body.
Good. Anything else?
Always nice to see you, Skylar.
Always nice to have you here, Skylar. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next on the agenda, representative from the tribe. Let's see. Okay, next. Our nurse coordinator. An update from our nurse coordinator.
Good evening. I thought I would start with taking any questions you may have.
There seemed to be, and I may be just reading this incorrectly, a revision as to what goes in, what constitutes red, green, yellow. What is that all about, and how does that affect the schools?
So we're still contact tracing and case counting, so you are correct as far as the numbers per capita that it triggers the red zones. But again, as we've said in the past, using the color and the designation for the town, that's just a piece of the puzzle that we look at. So we are still looking at percentages, watching the Barnstable County rates, the town rates, things that are in school, looking at things if there are were to be an outbreak. Is it in a skilled nursing facility versus a school versus colleges, whatever the demographic is. So that was only a piece of our puzzle for the designation. And even if the coloring, if we were in different colors as they go up, it has to be for 3 weeks. There's a lot of pieces that go in. So that's just a piece of data. Not that it's not important, and we do monitor that. But as far as the shift, it's a little cleaner, so to speak.
I'm sorry, a little
Cleaner.
cleaner?
For how the aggregate data for numbers and population, and it's from my perspective in looking at data and contact tracing, it would be a more accurate reflection of what is truly going on in the community.
Okay, thank you. Anything else?
So I'm actually just looking at the Mashpee website, and I'm not sure if you're the right person, but you probably can direct the right person. It looks like, we have a headline that says, under the district, multi-school closure for COVID-19. It really relates to last spring, not to today. So I would hate for someone to look at the headline, such as what I just did.
Which website are you on?
the Mashpee, public school, under the district.
I think there's another link in that same column though, that's learning, it keeps it current for this spring. From the main page, is there another,
Well, this is under the district, and it just came up, it was showing multi-week
Right, let me-
closure, and
Sure, we will definitely look
so
into that.
I would just suggest
Yeah.
you might want to put that somewhere else so that,
so you went in under the district, but if you were on the main page and went down to quick links,
yeah,
the second one says learning in school year 2021, and it has information in there as well, but we can definitely take the other. It's still gonna live there, but we won't have it.
I would just,
I think he's just saying change the title.
or archive it somehow,
Sure.
so that it's not mistakenly,
Correct.
That's not a Stacy thing, that's a me thing.
okay, well,
Just so.
like I said,
In
I'm not
defense
sure
of Stacy.
who's responsible
That's
since
good.
it falls under COVID, but,
Yep.
I just wanted to,
Sure.
to point that out. Because the thing that I was actually just looking for here a second ago was, the parent guidelines in regard to the daily testing, that they're supposed to be doing, with the
Screening.
screening, yes.
What are they?
Well, I was looking to see if it was prominent here, so that I could easily find it. And I,
So they're in the landing pages in the schools, so it is in there, but we can definitely take a look to see. But I have to say that, part of my presentation tonight was to let you know that we've had 351 students or staff who have either been sick this school year, presented with some kind of illness symptom, or been told that they've been a close contact and or put in quarantine, whether it's school related or outside of school, if you're a student identified in your regular role of life, beyond the 6.5 hours a day. So out of those 351 students, we've had 217 PCR tests done. So as you know, we have 5 positive confirmed cases in the district. So out of 217 tests that are done, I think that's actually pretty good math, and I'll defer to Ashley. And then 134 students out of that 351 have come back with either a differential diagnosis like strep, flu, allergies. So there's a lot of testing going on. Turnaround time for testing does seem to be average 2 to 5 days, depending on where you're at with and where you go. Cape Cod Healthcare did upgrade their information system over the last couple of weeks, so that gave them a little computer glitch and a little delay there, but that seems to have settled down because I had people who got tested yesterday and had their results back already today, so it's pretty good turnaround time. We do have, we had 3 people travel in October, so we are also contact tracing individuals if you travel, and 27 people so far for November. So as we know, it's the holiday season coming up next week. So my intention for tonight is to just remind people of the governor's advisory, the travel advisory, to really please try to follow the protocols of family only, family only. If you do travel, what the requirements are for testing, it is a PCR test. But we really would encourage people to follow the protocols of small groups, your immediate family only. If it is a larger gathering, size is 10. Masking, physical distancing, even inside, hand hygiene, and just being careful and mindful to help slow the spread. So that is something that is on the back of my mind for safety and making sure that we do follow those. Last month when I spoke, we were talking about the flu, so I thought I would give you an update on where we stand. So as of today, we have 824 of our 1,502 students who have received their flu vaccine already. So we do have 678 students who are in need of that, which does sound like a large number, but when we spread it amongst our 3 schools, we are really getting there. So a lot of people have appointments scheduled over the break time upcoming. So, and some people have had it done and just haven't given us their data. So that is moving forward nicely. We had 452 health office visits since the 2 months that we've been open, which accounts for 1,905 health office visits. 1,763 have gone back to class. 134 students have been dismissed in the last 2 months for illness. 8 injuries. We've had 1,928 phone calls with families. So that does not include our attendance line, which is getting a lot of use. But that's actual nurse to parent, guardian contact. So needless to say, we're on the phone a lot. So I highlight that, and also 1,201 staff communications. So we are communicating, and that is key. And it really, I believe that is why things are working. People are being honest, trusting us. We need to continue to work on that trust. I truly like contact tracing. That this is what I do. It is now my new passion. And I really, keeping everyone safe is huge in my priority. But that communication, that feedback, reaching out, asking me directly. It is my personal cell that's in all the letters and websites and things that go out. So I will answer the call. Leave a message if I don't answer right away. But it really, that collaboration and communication is really, it's working. So I'm very grateful.
That's our lead for Susan. And our other 2 nurses as well.
And it really, I couldn't do it without the 3 of them. I mean, it's just, we're an awesome team. And we really work really well together. And I am reachable through all of next week. Ask me questions, ask me directly. Side conversations really make things snowball out of control. I did actually send Mr. Bellistracci an email yesterday that I drove a different way to school, trying to keep my sanity too. And there were 4 students at a bus stop, and they were all physically distanced, masked, and I was just so proud to say that they're not kids. So everybody's doing a really great job. So thank you. Yes, Nicole.
So just for the benefit of parents, in terms of the emails that go out and the notifications when we do have a positive case, I want to just give you the opportunity to talk about the fact, as I've come to understand, is that the information that is shared. So if your child is considered a close contact, in other words, when a notification goes out, you need not panic. You need not call the school in order to reduce that number of phone calls, because if you were a close contact, you would be notified. And so I think parents, because I get people contacting me, asking me, well, what's going on, and I think everyone assumes that because of this hybrid schedule, that you can maybe share more information, was this kid in school or not? And I think what we're hearing anecdotally throughout the press and in the media is that there isn't a lot of spread happening in school. And so I think we have that sort of in the back of our minds. But maybe you can just talk about why the sharing is so limited, and that people really shouldn't panic and, or worry about it unless they get a call from you.
Correct. So the global notification when we do learn of a positive does go out. We do, as you know, have to report to Department of Elementary and Secondary Ed what school the positive was. And the other identifying information, if you read the key on, is if they were in school for the last 7 days. So if they're not in school, it actually doesn't capture in our data. So you will notice, you will probably, if you start saving these emails for how many positives and look at the DESC website, there'll be a discrepancy. And there may also be a discrepancy because we have students who are school choice. So for like the Mashpee data, things might look a little different. There's multiple layers to this data. So data is based on what you're looking at. So if your child is identified as a close contact, you will receive a separate email at basically the same time as there's been a positive confirmed case in the school district. Your child's identified as a close contact, you'll have directive, and then you'll get a personal phone call by me and or my designee, depending on the number of positive contacts identified. As far as releasing information, again, it can be a myriad of information, it doesn't really matter. What you need to know is if you were within 6 feet of someone for 15 minutes or more in a 24-hour period, we are going to identify you as a close contact. The reason why I truly believe schools are safe is because you have contact tracing happening 24/7, 7 days a week, for those of us who are in the school environment for that 6.5 hours or 7 hours and 10 minutes for staff, Monday through Friday. So schools are safe because I am looking at where everyone is, attendance, locations, seating charts, class lists, if they do for special, what they do for where they go for recess, where they are for lunch, like all of that data is reviewed as it applies to the situation. But it is only as good as that 6 hour and 10 minute. So I don't contact trace for outside of school. So you are safer in the school by someone looking at who has been within your 6-foot bubble for 15 minutes more in a 24-hour period of time. Contact tracing takes on a whole different meaning based on the day of the week, based on if someone were hybrid, based on if your child were out sick, based on so many different scenarios that it is literally individualized. So that is why we do all the contact tracing and data collecting we do for where all teachers and staff are in their school day. I also collaborate with the Boys and Girls Club, Mashpee Rep, and then if you were to have someone who were positive, so if you were positive, I would go over and ask and look at your classroom, where you've been, if you've been on a bus, if you've gone to lunch, your recess, your cohort, before and after school activities. I even ask and look at, like, if you do driver's ed, so I can look at that. I'll ask you who your best friends are, to see if there's other stuff. So every situation is different, which is why it has to be individualized, and we're not going to give out any individualized information based on privacy, because it is still a health condition.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
And
So
so,
one of Stacy's messages is always about building this trust, because she and I go back and forth on the letters before I send them. And we've had conversations when I've wanted to put other things in, but in the end, what I'm finding too is fewer and fewer responses when this is the third time we've sent a letter. And I do agree that there has to be that level of trust that particularly Stacy is really on top of everything, handling it correctly. And everybody has this desire to know more details, but it's just, I think, just human nature and curiosity, but you don't need to know it to make your decisions based on, you just need to know what we tell you.
We are really seriously looking at all aspects, and we look at stuff without giving out individualized identifying information. And I think part of the problem is from a medical model like this. We contact trace all the time. So school nurses have been doing this forever, since 23rd year of school nursing. We contact trace when we have chickenpox, measles, mumps, whooping cough, H1N1. Like, this is normal to us in a way. So we really do know and assess what we're doing, and we do take everybody's safety as paramount.
so
Yes.
one last question, hopefully. So excluding individuals who have had to be COVID tested, are you seeing about the same number of kids out sick this year as last year, or less?
So
Or more?
thank you. So we're pretty much average about the same, because we are still seeing the same amount. Strep throat is always as what we're seeing, and those numbers are still being the same. We are already seeing flu tests. So actually, I should have wrote those numbers, sorry. I'll do that next time. We're the same, or actually probably a little less, because parents are doing a really good job at keeping kids home that are sick, and we're not seeing the spread. Plus, we're wearing masks in school, and people are 6 feet apart. So we actually had less children with allergy symptoms and sending them home than we usually do, because people are being mindful and or managing those kind of conditions. We did a lot of education prior to that, so Our numbers are pretty much the same, and they might even be slightly better. But I will run that for you next time.
Okay, because one would expect that
Correct.
because of those precautions. I'd also expected it hopefully would be lower because of the number of students who are fully remote or being homeschooled. So, that takes out a fair number of individuals who potentially could have been in the school spreading disease or spreading illness.
Correct.
All right.
Well, just to add to your point, and it's preliminary, that I had Principal Valstrati had given me some attendance data, and for 9 through 12, which was up to like a week ago or something, there were 45 kids who had had greater than 3 absences, but there's 451 students, so that's about a 10%, because you do have the ability to engage remotely, which wouldn't count as an absence, so just making that more clear.
Kind of just a general question based on all the stuff that's going on around us, specifically New York City. Has there been any discussion, it could be Patty or you, about like a remote trigger?
So again, as we've said all along, it's based on our data. So currently right now, we are not seeing community spread in our town and or in our schools. But again, we're watching it constantly. And if you look at that map with those colors, like even surrounding, Barnstable County is seeing clusters of community spread. Travel and what people do from now moving forward is really going to be the key. So
There's no number you're looking at.
it's not a number,
together.
it's based on what we're seeing. And like, can we handle the contact tracing? Can we, like, there's so many things to it. So,
Okay.
yeah, there's not a set one thing. And again, in our town, we do have a few skilled nursing facilities. So like our data might look worse than it is. But again, we don't all live and have people in those facilities. And then those facilities are already starting to stop their like visitors or go tighter. So it's multifaceted, so there's no one key piece.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Just one final question to the person who contacted me who said that, well, schools were probably going to close anyway, so, traveling over Thanksgiving won't be a big deal because they won't have to get tests when we come back. I from where I'm sitting, even my daughter asked me today, Mom, do you think we'll be going remote anytime soon? And I said, no. I said that we're doing very well. I said that the governor is really looking hard at the districts who are not having in-person schooling right now. And I said, as long as our community continues to behave responsibly, I think we can stay in school. And so I just want to, say to all the families and students out there to echo Don's point, keep doing what you're doing because we don't want to go full remote again, and we have the power to see that doesn't happen. I think if I like most families, I struggled. I wanted to see my family for Thanksgiving, and having that decision to just look at the same 3 people that I've been looking at for the last 8 months. Was hard, but that's what we're gonna do, and we just gotta hang in there. And so I want to also just say thank you to you, and it's certainly glad that we got COVID funding this year to have a full-time position to manage this whole situation, because I can't imagine where we would be right now without you in that role. So thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Actually, it's a great learning experience. It's an awesome team. The communication and collaboration is really good. It's challenging. I usually learn at least 1 or 2 things a day. But again, echoing what you said, it's all down to personal responsibility, us all working together, staying on the same page. My mother is not talking to me because I told her she may not come over. She lives 11 minutes away. And we'll Zoom again. It's just really challenging, and I understand that and respect that, but it's for people's safety, and again, keeping us open is the goal. And it's awesome to be in school and see people and kids.
And to acknowledge, Stacy is 24/7 because she takes calls from staff who are, whatever their concerns are, she has really given the message to and families too. that she is available, so I'll have to take care of you down the road too.
But that even over the weekend and holiday, like I obviously am home, but just, it's that communication, and no one is bothering me. I'm trying to figure out how to say you're not bothering me in a different language from my Friday update, because it's that communication. Ask the questions, please don't sit with it, trying to relieve anxiety. I know people need to learn to trust, and I understand it's really anxiety provoking, but ask your questions, communicate. I learn something new when I talk to other people too, and this is what I'm here for, so.
I just have one additional question on procedure here. Student X is test positive. You go through all of the contact tracing and all the rest of that. Is your letter to the people who have to be contacted goes out before Patty's goes out?
So that is our, either out at the same time, or that letter will go out, and then the next click is the letter that there's positive. So that the issue that we find is social media is faster than we are. And kids talk, so we look at it individually. We make sure that I never want to say that there's a positive case until I have confirmed that it's positive. If any of you have ever read these results, like, you can think something says something, it might not. So I am listening to rumors. I have a little jar in my office, so drop a dime. I will listen. I will investigate. I'm going to go to Hawaii soon. It's still in the white. So I'm kidding. But making sure that we validate and listen and confirm before we release information. And then the contact tracing piece, I never want to put someone in quarantine that does not need to go into quarantine. Because if you haven't looked and listened to the other presentations that we've done, quarantining for 14 days means you stay away from everybody in your own space and you don't go anywhere. But I also don't want to miss someone, and I also don't want to inform someone that they've been identified as close contact and that they should get tested. So we take it really seriously, and we look at all of the data and have it as accurate as we are. But yes. And if it were a large group, we have contingency plans to make sure people get their call that their child's been identified as a close contact, all pretty much at the same time or in a really organized fashion.
So just to reinforce, so the scenario, I want everyone to know as early as they can, because once we do start contact tracing, that's when friends talk to friends, and then it gets out there, and I think that does not bode well for building trust. So, you know, every scenario is different. If she has to close contact a huge list, then obviously that takes longer. Sometimes the more recent, there are different ones where it's much more tidy and easier to make it almost happen simultaneously. But we talked about it, so the general letter is going to go out as soon as we can, just so people know. And sometimes it'll say something different if we do feel there's close contact.
And the last plug, I guess, to remind people is if you have not updated your student data information for this school year, it's imperative that you click on that link, update your information. I need real-time phone numbers and emails. I'm spending a lot of time having calls and numbers that are no longer in service or somebody else's cell phone. So please, 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 I need those updated and returned back. And if you have questions, there's emails and all of the updates that Mrs. DeVore and the principals have been sending out on who to contact and how, or reach out to me and I'll make sure it gets reissued. But we really, if you want communication in real time, we need to be able to give it to you, so it needs to be current and up to date. And if things change after you've submitted it, let me know and we'll make sure it gets done.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks,
See you next
Stacy.
time.
Yes, you will.
Next, public comment.
None.
Do we have anything? Okay, fine. Next on the agenda, consent motion will actually approval of minutes of October 21st, 2020. You will see on the table that you, when you come in this evening, is a change to the minutes that were in the original package. It's under the number 6 on page 1. The second sentence on mass resolutions, the committee agreed to adopt. That has been changed to support. the guidance from MASC regarding the resolutions below. The rest of the minutes remain as you have originally received them in your packet. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes as, I guess, amended?
Yeah, I just wanted to, for Jeff and Don, I just wanted it to be clear that we did not adopt all of those resolutions here in Mashpee, and the way it read originally made it seem like we had adopted them here. So if you can read that, and that's clear to you now, that that's not what we did, that was the only change I requested, so I just wanna make sure everyone's okay with the alternative language.
So,
Okay.
well, I guess my only question is, so we're not listing, I thought in the original minutes, it listed the ones that we didn't adopt.
No, that's the only thing that changed in the minutes from what was in the original packet.
Okay.
And then under new business, we addressed the other ones that weren't passed under the consent motion, Don.
Oh, okay. So, yeah, on the new business. Okay. Thank you.
All set?
I'm all set.
A motion to approve minutes as amended?
I move to approve the Mashpee School Committee minutes from October 21st as amended.
Second.
Motion by Nicole, second by Don. Discussion on the motion, Nicole? Seeing no discussion, Jeff?
Abstain.
Abstain. John?
Yes.
Yes.
And yes. 3 yeses and 1 abstention by.
If I could interrupt for a second,
Sure.
a little bit of motion trivia. So I learned last week that you can't say so moved, that does not qualify as a motion, technically.
Oh,
So a little nod to my colleague over there. I didn't even read it in Robert's Rules of Order, but I learned it in a mask meeting. So we have to state our motion.
I'm very proud.
Yeah.
I'm very proud.
Thank you. You've groomed me well.
thank you.
But someone ought to tell the Board of Selectmen. It's not gonna be me.
Report from the superintendent, please.
You do have in front of you the article that's going to be in the Mashpee Enterprise on Friday. But just a couple of highlights. This is National Native American Heritage Month. And we did do the best we could to plan events to celebrate our Native American students and allow them to celebrate their culture and teach their peers and teachers. So last Friday and this Monday this week was the Rock Your Rocks event, and we did it for each cohort to have an opportunity to wear their native clothing. And then we have chosen 5 influential Mashpee Wampanoag tribal members and elders actually, and so each day on the intercom you're learning about the person, correct?
Yeah.
Yes. And then we've also been videotaping, I think there were about 5 students from each of the schools who recorded in response to what do you wish all people knew about your Wampanoag culture. And Hunter Toby, who is native, is pulling that all together and creating a short video that we're hoping to share by Friday. That is our goal. And normally, you know, when we normally have a much more rich cultural assembly, which we're not able to do this year, but we'll keep working on that. Also, I know that Skyla talked about our senior boys the other night for soccer and also golf. And earlier in the season, we also recognized our senior girls in soccer. Abigail Dorman, Emma Holmes, Abigail Thompson, Brooke Johnston, Caroline Shields, and Emily Theodore, and also for field hockey, Sydney Burke, Jalen Burke, Alexis Bryant, Paige Lundberg, Malima Shafi, and Clara Sines. And the South Shore League Fall All-Stars. Boys varsity soccer is Gabe Pelez, Gabe Tellez, Nathan Ware, and Ben Kennedy. Girls varsity soccer is Caroline Shields and Kalia Eaton. Golf is Colin Spencer and Jack Spencer, and field hockey is Sydney Burke. Also highlighted in this is our robotics team, our sophomore team. Katrina Mahan and Jamie Hughes, their team. and Sean Ware and Ethan Liu are also a team, and the competitions this year have been outdoors at Hopkinton High School. And so they just had one last Saturday, and Katrina and Jamie won the Excellence Award, which is the most prestigious award to win at a competition. And it qualifies them for the Southern New England Regional Championship in the spring of 2021. And Sean and Ethan were the tournament champions along with their alliance partners from Hopkinton High School. And that win qualifies them for the Southern New England Championship, which is December 12th in Hopkinton. So some of those pictures are there. Two other highlights: 14 of the media production students at Mashpee Middle High School created short videos about human population growth that highlight one of the following global challenges: promoting environmental justice, strengthening global health, and reimagining industrial systems. There's a link here. Those have all been posted to the Mashpee TV YouTube channel. So, but there'll be a link in our Friday email so everyone can view those. And then the last thing I just want to highlight before I move to a few other things is just making sure everyone knows that we did increase our substitute daily rate. So it's $105 if you have a high school diploma or an associate's degree, $115 if you have a bachelor's degree or higher, and then $128 if you have a bachelor's degree or higher and you're licensed through the Massachusetts Department of Elementary and Secondary Education. And just today we're trying to encourage some of our college-age students who are home learning remotely to earn a little bit of extra money. So I know that we processed 3 substitutes today, which is great. A couple other highlights to talk about. We did do our parent guardian check-in survey, which is closing tonight. I think I put that down. So you had to complete a survey for each of your children, so that would have been 1,502 responses. And we are up to 795, so I'm super happy about that return rates. And what we're going to do once it closes tonight is then we're really looking at, some of the questions where obviously if they don't have internet, there's about 9 people who have said they were really challenged there. If they consider their child, if they're really worried about their child's social emotional well-being, we're going to put a team of the counselors to really dive into that information. All the comments that have been shared, we're going to look into any of those that definitely need our attention. Yeah, I can't remember, there was another question. But so at the next meeting, we'll just sort of have a summary for you and some of the action steps that we've taken from that. But generally, the feedback has been positive.
What was the number again that you got?
795.
So you made a point here. Do we have students who don't have access to the internet at home?
We have addressed all those who don't have it based on us reaching out or them reaching out originally. So we have to dive into sort of why a parent responded that way in terms of seeing what truly is the challenge. The question was that they don't have access to reliable internet. Let me just
Oh, that's a different.
I don't have access to it.
Yeah, I was gonna say, you're gonna find the majority of people.
So most are satisfied with the COVID health and safety measures in place. It's a bell curve for the social emotional well-being. So really anybody that's the 3 on up, we have like 97 students whose parents are concerned. They've rated them as a 5. That's the most concerned.
I guess, Patty, my question though is excluding the survey, because that's kind of, at this point in time. But at the beginning of the year, to today, are all of the students who need to have access to the internet able to get to the internet?
So we thought that they were, but this is showing that in whatever feedback they've given that they're struggling. Because we have addressed it in all of the schools,
Okay.
and helped out families that needed help. And one of the things we recently found is that the National Public Library, you can basically check out a hotspot. And so we researched that a little bit in the last couple of days in terms of an alternative that we might explore as well, and where we could just have them in our school libraries and get them distributed that way if somebody needs that.
And I
So
know
there's-
that Xfinity provides $8, I believe it's $8, and they might have actually waived that even lower now because of COVID, like a basic internet package for families that had it. And I would love to know what the final numbers are, because there are organizations out there that would offset that money for those families as well, especially in this one. So.
It is a nonprofit, if you're a nonprofit, which obviously there are some sources that would assist too, please find me out today. But everybody prefers to be communicated by email, which that was 77.7%. And generally, pretty good satisfaction with different levels of communication, district, school, and teacher. So anyway, we're really going to be looking at the areas that we need to help people. So if anybody out there hasn't done their survey yet, feel free. It's not closing until I go home tonight. The other thing, which is a little bit disappointing, we were supposed to do our planning for success next session tomorrow. Right? And the facilitator's not really comfortable, which I don't blame her. It's not so much our inner group that often is together anyway, but there are outsiders. It was going to be a reduced size, but still about 14 people. And so she would prefer that if we can wait till February, March, and then we'll do a very compressed, meeting each week and get it done. So for now, it's going to be on hold, which I understand.
She wasn't wanting to facilitate over Zoom or Teams or something?
We talked about this way back when in March and April, that the next step, which is root cause analysis, didn't lend itself well to Zoom, she didn't feel. So that's that. In personnel, in the packet, you see that there is a new administrative assistant at the Coombe School, Cindy Papa, and then we had a retirement of Katie Campbell at the Mashpee Middle High School. And then you have the colored chart of enrollment. And just, as a pointing out, we left the October and going to the November, the upper charts on this page. But we did have 14 students who went from 100% remote to either an in-person or hybrid model, depending on their grade. So that was a movement in the right direction. And we currently have about 17% of the population is 100% remote.
Just a clarification, the 44 homeschooled students are not in the numbers above, but they are
No.
in the numbers below, correct?
No, they're not down below either. Well, they are there from previous years, but homeschool students are not part of our enrollment, correct? Okay. They're not. They're connected in the sense that if they want to take an art class in past years, I don't know how it's working this year, but generally they could come in and do specials or take advantage of some things in the district, but they're not on our rolls.
Okay, so we really are down 61 students.
Yeah, but one of the biggest areas is in the preschool, which we talked about at the previous meeting.
Right.
But if you're comparing last year to this year, you have to take into account the homeschool because those people used to be with us. Because I did talk about this before, the two big pieces between last year's enrollment and our current enrollment has to do with the dip in preschool and moving from 8 homeschooled to 44, so that's whatever that is, 36.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
Any questions on this sheet?
Well, it's related to this movement from, between and among learning models.
Mm-hmm.
So if people are feeling confident, that are 100% remote right now, and so it looks like some of them are coming back to and choosing hybrid.
Well, they'd have to if they're 44.
But
Yeah.
can we continue to, if everyone tomorrow decided they wanted to come back into a hybrid model, would we be screwed in terms
No.
of the distance requirements and?
No, because we have a desk for every one of those students.
Okay,
We know them.
so
They
we,
can't maybe ride a bus, but they could come.
okay, so people can still, right now, continue to move into that hybrid model, as long as we have a hybrid model, they are welcome in that hybrid model. Okay.
Because of the way we set up our hybrid model, which we were just talking today with group of superintendents, and it's not that way in every place.
Right. Okay. I think people are hearing from other districts that they can't that they don't have that flexibility. I mean, they're aware that we have it now, but I think there's this impression that it tapers off at some point and isn't possible. So I just wanted to be clear.
Well, the only glitch to the perfect scenario that we've planned is any new students to Mashpee. That sort of tips the scales.
Gotcha. Cool. Let's hope.
May I add one thing? Is that okay?
Absolutely.
About that? Just also that, yes, they're welcome and we want them to come back, but there is, and particularly grades 7 through 12, it can take up to 6 weeks for the scheduling piece to work. So right now, it hasn't taken more than 2 weeks, but just putting out there for people to hear that the state gives us up to 6 weeks to make that change. So I just wanted to, that's not just with transportation, that's also with kind of getting them in. But again, it has not taken close to that time at this point. All right, thanks.
It's definitely more complex at the middle high school.
So at the last meeting, we were told that there was a backlog in regard to, I believe it was the preschool kids coming in with IEPs and that aspect. Is that backlog been worked through, or is it still existing?
It's still existing, and with preschool, as kids turn 3, they start coming in, so that happens kind of throughout the school year. But so kind of between the two of them, and you just never know when their birth dates are, so between the two of those things is why the numbers are a little low. But I mean, kids remain eligible to come to preschool or receive services through us. And we've sent out child find letters too,
So how big is the backlog?
Well, that I don't know off the top of my head. I can look into it and get back to you.
Yeah, if you could just let us know at the next meeting, I would appreciate it. Thank you.
Any other questions on that? And I think each principal was going to do a short share out, so do you have a preference for order of operation?
Let's go, Mark.
Okay.
Is that closest proximity?
Yeah.
Do you want to keep this
You
on?
never go first.
Do you want to keep this on, or is it a preference, or maybe not?
I can hear you a little better.
Take it off. Yes, Mr. Chair, members of the committee, thank you. I had a wonderful discussion ready for this evening about our robotics teams. And the Superintendent Report gave you a really good indication of that. And just really a quick update on the middle high school. We just finished our first term. Report cards were available this evening for view on Power School, and we're also sending hard copies this year, just to make sure that everybody gets them and has access to those report cards. So just in reflecting on the first term, I think that our teachers have worked really hard to try to adapt their instruction, their strategies, and engage our students both in person and while they're remote. And I really want to give a huge shout out to our students. They're not just taking 7 or 8 classes, they're learning an entire new way to learn and experience education. To balance the level of independence that is required for students to be successful while at home and remotely learning is something that is not generally taught in public schools, and they've done a really great job of adapting throughout the first term. I think that we're starting to get into somewhat of a groove with how we're operating and how our teachers are engaging our kids. One of the strategies we've been using in a lot of classrooms is during independent work time, if there's an assignment going on, something of that nature, a lot of our teachers are starting to do a little conferencing with the students who are remote. So go into a breakout room independently with that student to see how they're doing, check in on them, see what they need to make up for work, see what's stressing them out. And that's been a really positive impact to continue to build relationships. I think one of the biggest challenges this year has been not having the kids fully in person all the time to build those strong foundational interpersonal relationships. So I think that the teachers are seeing that that's a significant need that we need to continue working on. They're very reflective in problem solving on the fly to make that work. But our students have been phenomenal. As Nurse Stacy said, the best email I got this week was that 4 kids were at a bus stop with their masks on. And that's really positive. And I have to be honest, I'm in the hallways throughout the entire day in classrooms, cafeteria, the gymnasium, and our kids are wearing masks. Our kids are following all of the rules. They are so respectful and understanding of why we have to do this. And even though they might not all agree with it, they know it's the right thing to do, and they've really stepped up and risen to the occasion. So I'm very, very grateful to our kids and to our teachers.
I'm also grateful to our families, continuing to support us, to work through the kinks, to engage kids remotely, them balancing working full time while having a student home remotely on their own throughout the day. Not an easy task in any way, and they've been phenomenal. One of the things that we're working on as a leadership team at the middle high school level is to work with our counseling department and also our BCBA and school psychologists to put some little workshops and trainings together for families that might have students that are reluctant to engage while remote. So just putting different strategies in place, things that we can do to make sure that our kids are accessing as they need to during the remote weeks or those that are 100% remote. So it's been a very interesting year, been a unique year, but our kids have made it doable, our staff has made it doable, and our families have made it possible. And I have this little pad here I was reading earlier. A lot of people going into the year said this is impossible, this is not doable, it's not feasible. And in many ways we all had that thought going in. But everything's impossible until it's done. And I think that our teachers are working toward it. It's a work in progress, certainly far from perfect. But I'm just very proud of the effort, the collaboration, the communication, and just trying to do the right thing that our Mashpee kids, faculty, and staff, and students do. So I think November is a really important time to express gratitude. And that's really the biggest thing I have for you all this evening is the gratitude to you guys, supporting our district, superintendent, assistant superintendent, everyone at the central office, just making this happen. Because it's not easy, it's stressful, as you all know, on everyone, not just us, but our kids especially. So we just want to make sure that we're expressing our gratitude and validating just exactly what they're doing to make this happen. So I'm grateful to be here, grateful to be in my role, and I'm really excited for continuing to problem solve and kind of make this happen. I like this challenge. I think it's a great challenge that we can all overcome through collaboration. So let's leave tonight.
Anybody have any questions?
Well, in the spirit of that, I want to express my thanks to the counselors at the school. I think my advice to my fellow parents is, don't wait to ask for help. If your kid is struggling, let somebody know. And I think we all get into this mindset of reaching out to teachers, which is great. But if you're a new middle school parent like me, understanding the role of the counselors, staff, and the administration, we had an issue and I reached out to the dean, and when she responded, she put me in touch with one of the counselors. And as I saw that whole process unfold, it just something that had me so anxious and worried. It was just, they sort of took it all off my plate in a way that it was just such a relief to know that someone was looking out for my kid in the building, and that teachers also have that backup, that they're not expected to resolve all of these problems themselves. So I was really pleased to see how that system works, and as a beneficiary of it, I just want to express my gratitude as well.
Thank you. I think it's important. Again, I sent an email out to the families to inform them that report cards are viewable this evening and that they'll be sent out in the mail. One of the biggest things in that correspondence was trying to be proactive in communication. Let's not wait till it's a problem or it's beyond a problem. Let's be proactive and just make sure that we're all communicating very clearly. What we don't know, we don't know. So the more we know, the more capable we are. And I'm just very proud of our team. We have a brand new counseling team in the middle school. They're outstanding. We have a new team up in the high school. They've been outstanding. So I'm just very grateful for that. And it's good to hear that. You don't always get the positive, so I think it's important and I'm grateful that you shared that tonight.
So I guess the question I have, I was just thinking about, because I'm looking here at the athletic department notes, and so it triggered me to think about, we're ending basically one season and theoretically starting another season. Can you give an update on what's going to happen in the second quote-unquote season? What's got canceled or postponed?
So there's a lot up in the air right now. Obviously hockey, basketball were initially higher risk sports in the fall, and they've worked on different rule changes and modifications to those sports to see if they can eventually operate and run them. So I don't have a concrete answer. I know that it's working with the superintendent and the director at Treveri. We want to provide every chance we can for students to engage, and if it's safe to do so, we certainly will do everything we can to. Basketball is one that's a tough one, just because of the nature of that sport. But they're working on different modifications to the game. So the MIAA and the EEC will help provide us guidance. But as soon as we can get things up and running, we will. However, we need to walk before we run with that. So I think it's important to get all the data and then to work with our league, principals, superintendents, and athletic directors to make the best decision for the safety of the kids. So if we can, we certainly want to. And we're also doing the same thing with clubs. Our clubs are up and running. They're starting to get going. Meetings are occurring. It's been positive. So I wish I had more. I know the MIAA is working very diligently on basketball because that seems to be a sticking point throughout the Commonwealth.
Thank you.
And just to add related to that, the South Shore League, which is what we're in, the superintendents met Monday, we meet again next Monday to sort of reach sort of consensus on what we are going to or can or can't. We want to kind of be in unison. And then we had a meeting today with Old Colony superintendents, and they talked about an MIA meeting in terms of some of the changes that basketball takes place, like no boxing out, no half times, various things. But for us and for many of the schools, it's a challenge because our gymnasiums are being used for another purpose. And who is going to move our lunch setting out at the end of the day and back in the morning, because it's not going to be the custodial staff who's out straight with disinfecting and cleaning. So, and then other people use classrooms or in their cafeterias, in their gymnasiums. So there are a lot of layers to that. I did talk to 2 girls yesterday when I happened to be roaming around in the high school, and they are basketball players, and they were trying to figure out how it could possibly, they didn't think it could or should happen. So I don't know where we're going to land. But if we, I know that for the mental health of many students, it's very beneficial to have those activities. But, we're still not able to sort of sing in school. We can't have plays. And so there's just a lot of layers to that. But we should be, if anything, I know that they talked about nothing would happen. Originally, it was going to be the 30th of November. That got shifted to December 14th as a start. Then it kind of landed at December 10th in a meeting today. Basically to allow for all of the whatever could happen at Thanksgiving, and that no competitions would start until January. They also talked about when we play, say, Norwell, you would do all of your Norwell games in that week. So you'd have your away and home game girls, away and home game boys on that week, and then you'd never see Norwell again. That's one, actually the girls said they like that permanently, so. So we don't know gymnastics. There could be potential of virtual, like you're there, you do your thing, you get scored. There's ways. Hockey and basketball are the top one.
But even if they do manage to figure out how to do basketball, most likely will be without any crowds, correct?
Right. No, there would
More than likely.
There won't be spectators.
And 6-foot distancing on inbounds plays and zone defense and no boxing. It's going to be interesting.
Yeah.
How that all works.
Well, and it's so hard because we're really at a stage that no visitors come into our buildings. Mm-hmm. And so then you're going to start letting an away team, referees. It is just a lot of layers.
But we're all over it now. We'll say that.
And I said,
We are turning clocks.
fun will look and play outside. It sounds like the plan.
If I could push that mental health part, especially like during soccer season, like I know soccer and basketball are different because you can do soccer outside, but like when I'm at home and then like going to soccer is like something I can actually look forward to during the day. Like now that I'm remote and soccer's over, and like I love basketball and not knowing if we're gonna have basketball or not, it's just kind of a downer. And like I know we have to adjust and everything, but like having soccer and that was just so good because it gets you out of your house and like. It's like safe enough because everyone's like watching and so like it's protected, but not having, especially like winter over fall, especially like at least with fall the weather's warm enough that like if you don't have soccer you can like go for a bike ride or like go for a walk, but the winter's not going to be like that, and so it just has more people staying inside and like seasonal depression's an issue enough, and so just if there's any way, I just really want to push it, like if there's any way that we can have something for athletes even if it's not competition. Just like really make that a priority because it really does matter to the students.
You popped another thought in my head. This is really for Nurse Stacy. At some point, it will be appropriate to give the committee an update in regard to how these potential vaccines will come to play and you know, how that will potentially, change what we're currently doing, under the COVID guidelines. Well, I don't know when that will be, but, at some point, I think it would be appropriate to give us some sort of idea of what to expect going forward.
I will do that. The only thing that was, something that was MASS was sharing today, Tom Scott, was that it looks like teachers would be in a certain group that would be targeted to get a vaccine earlier than others. Now, whether they choose to get it, I don't know how it's going to play, but he was talking like in the early March timeframe.
So teachers would get it before the administration, is that what you're saying?
It's okay with me. Keep the teachers.
Moving right along.
Very good, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mark.
Good evening.
All right, Principal O'Brien. Oh, you're going out of order. I'm sorry.
We're going out of order.
There's no order.
It's difficult to follow Mark, I know. And if you get basketball, which I hope you do, we want singing class.
Okay.
No,
Well, I just want to make you know, Skyla, we do not get to decide whether it's basketball.
Yeah.
Okay. It's good for you to state that publicly, but the school board, the school committee does not make that decision.
Absolutely no control over that,
Fortunately.
unfortunately. Incorrect.
Hi.
I know.
How's everybody tonight?
Good.
Cold. So to reiterate some of what's been said, this has been November is the Native American celebration, and Tootie Coons has been in all week to help us celebrate. She read the welcome poster in Wampanoag and read it again in English, and it was very impressive. She's been reading about our prominent Mashpee Native Americans. We started with Earl Flying Eagle Mills, and we've done Ferdinand and Emma Oakley Mills, Vernon Silent Drum Lopez. Tomorrow is Ambrose Pells, and Friday is Kenneth C. Coons. So we've included our students, and one of the students this week said, when Tootie was kind of interviewing them, and he said, well, the best thing about being in Wampanoag is I get to go fishing with my dad. And he said, I caught 6 striped bass. And he said, but we had to throw some back because you don't take more than you need, ever. And I was like, that's really impressive. So the kids have come down, and that's been great. She's been interviewing them. They talked about how they learn to dance and how they're learning to drum and just a spirit of celebration in the school right now. And we're very thankful for Tootie, who will do anything for us. She'll come in, she'll explain things. She was telling Brian and I about why boys don't cut their hair, and honestly, we just sat there listening so intently. She's so well-spoken, and Brian said, that was very moving. So it's just a joy to have her in the building. So donations have been coming from the community. The New Seabury Mermaids, which is a group of women who wanted to help. And so they delivered gift certificates for a complete Thanksgiving dinner to us, and we chose a couple of families to give those to. They've also adopted a family for Christmas, and they're very excited to shop. And they want to know favorite colors and favorite superheroes and things like that. And Betty McQuinston knit 280 hats for Casey Coons. 280 hats. Plus, I know you're probably going to talk about it in yours too. She, for Quashnet, she did the same. And her husband, of 55 years, delivered them to us. So that's pretty amazing. An anonymous donor gave 2 $50 gift cards for Thanksgiving. Our resource officer, Katie Hennessy, and the Mashpee Police Department have donated kids' coats for any child that needs one. It's just amazing the outpouring in this community. Like Mark, I feel very fortunate to work here. So thank you to all of those wonderful people. Nadia Carboni, who is one of our paraprofessionals, made a big mask for Thunder.
Thunder is our big falcon. So Brian Whedon, bless him, he dressed up as Thunder and greeted the kids, and one of the kids said, Thunder, you don't have a mask on. And so a couple of days later, Thunder had a big old mask because everybody has to stay safe. So thank you, Nadia. I wanted to give a shout out to Gus Stickley and his crew. Lunch is going really, really well. He had promised hot lunches when we would start with pizza, and he has outdone himself today. The kids had cheeseburgers and my favorite potato puffs. But there's more hot lunches. It's almost hot every day. So that's been wonderful. The kids are enjoying lunch. Let's see, Mr. Prina tonight is at a PTO meeting, and I was working with them to get an author in, and the author's name is Jeepa Rhymes. So it took me a second. It must be grandpa, like he must be for his grandchildren. And so the book is called A New Day for Cray, and Cray is a fox. So he's going to read it over Zoom to the whole school, and we're looking forward to that. You can't have anybody in, so just having an author, a real author, local author, come and read to us is pretty exciting. In addition, Anne Marie Fenn has set up her Honor Society, English Honor Society children, I guess they're not children anymore, to read, and she's putting together some things that our Title I teachers asked for, so we're trying to utilize what we can when we can out there, so we're very appreciative of them as well. And let's see, I think, except for the new employees this month, which you probably know about, that's about it. So we have Caitlin Walsh. She was our paraprofessional. I think we mentioned that last time. She's working in Patty Bernard's room. She's doing a great job. We have our new school adjustment counselor, Taylor Marquardt. It's hard. She began last week, and she's also blending in really nicely. And we had our new secretary start Monday, Cindy Papa. So we are making it shake and groove over there. Oh, I did want to mention that the traffic, I know there was a question about that, the cars coming in the morning for drop-off and then for pickup in the afternoon, it has been going really, really smoothly. It's been successful every day. So Brian Prana, who's the assistant principal, and I stand at the end of the street in the morning, he takes the afternoon, and then he's here at the little circle so that we communicate with each other via walkie-talkie, I guess you're not supposed to call them that anymore, radios. Can I go, can I send the buses after the car, tell me what the last car is out, and he'll say it's a blue Lexus. And so after that blue Lexus goes, I let buses come down the other side, and it keeps things really moving. And we are, it's almost like we're just back at our time that we were at last year. It's really been smooth. We had a guy yesterday in the line who needed to jump. And, right? So we're trying to get cars around him, and everybody's doing it, and everybody's saying, do you need help? Do you need help? And some guy jumped him, and he got in his car. There's just such a community spirit out there. There's dancing only in the morning. We don't dance in the afternoon, but I don't know why. There's dancing in the morning. There's, Brian got these Mickey Mouse hands from one of the parents so that when he directs traffic, he can have these big white hands. I mean, it's just, and it should be like that because it's a pre-K through 2 school, so it should be fun. So yeah, it's just a lot of fun, and I'm really grateful for everybody's support and help.
And just to acknowledge, I mean, it is what it is. We have gotten it down. I don't know how many people we've gotten back on buses who want it to be, but the feedback we've had from our families has been nothing but positive. Everybody sort of understands. I know it's within a 3:35 by how much your dismissal takes, about 15 minutes?
About 10 minutes in the morning now.
And so obviously, if you're non-connected to the school person, you really should avoid Old Barnstable Road at certain times of the day. That's, and we do have police support. We don't have a separate detail down there. Katie Hennessy is there often, and then she's alerted the other officers on patrol to be there if they can be there. But we don't have a specific, I know that was a question that Dawn had of concern. And I know that one cohort is slightly different than the other in terms of the number of drivers. Which cohort's larger with the drivers?
For us, Mashpee is a little bit slower than our Falcon group here. But we're getting there.
And of all the people that sort of started driving but wanted to get on the bus, Hope tells me that we've had 131 placed back on buses, and there's no one currently waiting to be put on a bus. And so everybody's obviously hopefully content with whatever choice they have currently made.
So the concern that I had, which I expressed to the superintendent, she probably conveyed it to you, was cars on Old Barnstable Road that are getting backed up, waiting to get into Casey Coombs, to the driveway to go to Casey Coombs, and cars and or buses going around those cars that are waiting in the left-hand lanes. And, the other day I saw a bus pulling out to go to Quashnet, and someone had pulled it off into the left-hand lane because they were in a hurry and almost hit the bus. So.
Are you talking about on the road or on the
on
driveway?
The road.
On the road.
Yeah.
Yeah, we
Because
had that.
we're not actively doing anything there as far as I know.
Yeah, I stood in the road a couple of times and I don't want to stand in the road.
But the police department does know, and I mean, initially we had extra support. Katie Hennessy, our SRO, knows, and that is where we prefer her to be in that morning during that block of time, as well as on Old Barnstable, just to avoid, people that make that choice.
Right, and I mean, the car that I saw do that, the traffic freed up and I was able to see where they actually went. They went down to the medical building at the end of the street. They were in that big of a hurry.
Right, right.
And it could have really caused a big problem.
Right. When I see cars, I don't go into the road any longer, but when I see cars, I'll say, no, you can't do that. Not that they can read my mouth through my mask, but no, you can't do that. And they'll pull back over. But it's not as bad as it was. It's a little worse in the morning. It's great in the afternoon. There's not a backup in the afternoon at all. A little wet in the morning, which is where people get impatient because I don't know if they're trying to get to work or. But yeah, it's I would avoid that road if I could.
Well, unfortunately, for some people, that's their only access, and they're just not making wise decisions. And I'm just afraid something bad is going to happen as a result of it.
Well, we have strongly communicated our concerns to the police department. They are aware of them.
Thank you.
It's mostly the people that are non-school connected that are going to be the dangerous drivers. The rest, everyone else is the team players.
And Mashpee Police Department put on their Facebook page, if at all possible, between these 15 minutes and these 15 minutes, could you try to avoid that road if it's possible? So.
Thank you. I know you're doing your best.
We're doing our best.
All right, control plan.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Hi, Skylar.
Thanks, Kyle.
Bye, have a good night.
Good night, Skylar.
Thank you, Skylar.
Hi, everyone. It's nice to see you again. And I would have to agree with Principal Goulart that things are looking really good out in the parking lot, and the police department does send a detail when they can. It's not every day, but frequently. We do have a cruiser, a marked car that's sitting out front and is helping. But I have to acknowledge the parents, they're doing the best job ever coming in. And along the entire runway, I'm always outside saying, come on, move up, move up, move up. And this year, I can honestly say people are going up to the very front and they are unloading the entire length of the walkway. only one person, one adult gets out of the car, and that's because her back door isn't working correctly. And so we try to accommodate her as much as we can to help her. But if she's in between her workstation, she does pop out. But it's been really very good. I'm just really so thankful that people are following the rules out there. And we have rerouted them down to the end of the parking lot, all the way down past the superintendent's office and then coming in. So that's gotten a couple more cars off of Old Barnstable Road. But in the morning, it's only Mondays. Mondays is when we have our backup because the new cohort seems to come in and then they figure it out for Tuesday through Friday. Today there was absolutely no way to drop off, which was really great. Pickup is a little different. So I will follow along Principal Bellistracci's theme of being grateful. At Quashnet School, November has always been a month of gratitude. And one of the things we have always focused on is recognizing our veterans. And unfortunately, in the land of COVID, we could not have our assembly where we welcome the community. But we did want to make sure our students are recognizing those who have served others. So we have a wonderful team of teachers that got together, the two Miss Cohanes, Miss Reardon, Mrs. Rostales, and Mrs. Pagano all joined together and put together a mailbox out front of the main office. And all of the teachers encouraged the students to make cards and notes where we could send to many of the veterans that would come normally for our assembly. So they're just really heartfelt. They're adorable cards, little postcards that the kids made. These went to some nursing homes in town, certainly to our two school committee members. Thank you for your service as well. And they have little notes on the back. There were quite a few that went to David Williams, the 6th grade teacher who was deployed. A couple of these I held out because I really don't want to have a camel in our backyard. But it was so cute. Can you bring a camel home? But I think more than anything, it's just that recognition. Thank you for the freedom you have given our country. I'm very grateful that you defend, protect, and overall serve our country. This country will always remember that you have helped make us free and we have rights for all. So just some of those ideas. This one that went to Mr. Williams was just priceless. You mean a lot to me. I'm not getting all my work done, but I will for you. So it was just really precious, absolutely adorable. So I thank that team of teachers that pulled this together. We did have our banners up, we had flags outside, so it wasn't our typical, but it was certainly an opportunity for our kids to reflect on other people who have given for them. So that was really great. I'd just like to recognize our PTO. They have put together, we usually have our book fair in October, but this year they have done a virtual book fair, and that is up and running this week and last week. So hopefully parents are accessing that. Everything's a little bit different this year, but it's just nice to have that opportunity. They do a lot to support our teachers and our students, so I appreciate their efforts. The other thing I just want to acknowledge too is Cape Kid Meals. We're still moving forward. We have about 30 students that benefit from Cape Kid Meals. But one of the things this week, we're picking up tomorrow actually, our farm baskets. So it's all fresh vegetables, fresh meat, milk, cheeses. It's in a big box for each of the families that participates. And that's through Cape Kid Meals, and we'll pick those up at Cape Cod Community College, which is just a fabulous piece to help our families. We're very excited about that. And as you know, last year we talked about Cape Kid Meals. It costs $150 per student who participates, and that feeds them throughout the whole year, each weekend. We give the bags. And so that's an ongoing fundraising. But we just received a very, very generous check from Barnstable County Sheriff's Department. We have also received a lot of 3 different checks from the Mashpee Police Department and their unions, which is just so wonderful. And it's just we appreciate it so much because it goes directly to support our students. So, thank you. And it's always a great way to give back to support Cape Kid Meals. And we're happy to be a part of it. So other than that, things are going on swimmingly.
Any questions?
No, I look forward to the Veterans Summit next year.
Yes, we do too. We really want to bring that back, absolutely. We miss seeing all of our veterans come in. We have two older gentlemen they were in World War II, and it's always so special to have them come as grandparents and great-grandparents of our students, and to hear the stories of our soldiers and sailors. It is a fabulous thing. So we'll hope you'll be able to join us next year for that.
Thank you, Mary Kate.
I just have one thing for Mary Kate.
Yeah.
I just wanted to say, again, thank you to, I've had a few occasions to engage with our new nurse. And, you know, as a parent of a Quashnet kid, you tend to develop relationships with nurses over time. And I was a little, you know, you kind of get into a vibe with your nurse, and you're just not sure what the new nurse is going to be like, I guess. But she's been really great, and you know, thankfully nothing serious. But you know, things happen even in COVID that aren't COVID, and
That's right.
I've been very grateful that she seems very kind and very well, I guess much more willing to believe my child than I am, which I guess is what you want in a school nurse. But anyway, I just wanted to say thanks because she's been a real help as well.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Nurse Terry is outstanding. We're so fortunate to have her and to have Stacy available to us. They both are just invaluable members of our staff that we rely on every moment.
Yep.
Terry's right there, so I'm glad it was a positive experience.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And I just wanted Dr. Curley to take like 2 or 3 minutes to share a project that the district is piloting or involved with.
Hi there.
So the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education has
You
been.
want to take a minute?
I know, I don't have a lot of voice. The Department of Elementary and Secondary Education has been talking about improving the IEP process for a while now. And so just actually last spring they were talking about it, and I had Mashpee apply at that time, and then they put it off with COVID, but they decided this fall to reopen it. So I applied again, and Mashpee was accepted to be an early adopter, which means for the next 3 years we'll be involved in this process. And the first part of it is the stakeholder group, which is meeting with, there's 19 districts across the state that were chosen to be part of the early adopters, so Mashpee was one of those. Stakeholder groups are across the state. They're parent advocacy, a bunch of different, which we haven't met yet. We've just been working with we just started. So last week we did our orientation. There's 15 members from the district, general ed teachers, special ed teachers, administrators. We did our orientation last week, and then this week was our first stakeholder meeting. So right now we're just working with schools. We'll be meeting bi-monthly until January, and after that we'll be meeting monthly with all the other stakeholders that already started it in September. So it's pretty exciting. After the stakeholder portion will go through the end of this school year, and then a new IEP will be developed, and we'll be able to try that out in our schools. And then provide feedback back to the Department of Education, and and eventually we'll have a new IEP. So it's very exciting that Mashpee was chosen as one of the 19 districts to be a part of this.
That's
So,
great.
just to clarify, as part of that stakeholder group, are some parents involved or not?
There are advocacy groups of parents and other, so they've already been chosen. I don't know how they went about choosing those people
Okay.
at the state level. So we haven't met them yet.
So
I just was on the district portion of it.
Okay. So there's no local Mashpee advocacy group?
That I-
included or not, or you don't know?
That I don't know yet because we have not come together with those people yet.
Okay.
I just know the district part of it. So.
Nice. Sounds exciting.
But presumably you and your staff are representing the concerns of our parents, and I'm sure you've got a list of things that you would like to change in the IEP.
Yeah, what was
process.
very interesting was that we broke up into, on Monday night, there were, I don't know how many people were on the call, but we broke into 3 different groups. There were probably about 15 people in each group-ish. And all 3 groups had pretty consistent messages about their concerns. So right now we're going through a guidance document. The Special Education, the Right Service is the document. And we're going through it. It's 65 pages long, and it's pretty wordy, and there's a lot of jargon in there, and it's very confusing for parents to understand. So we're kind of going through that and we provided some feedback to the state already about making some changes to that to make it a little bit more user-friendly for parents to read and understand. Hopefully they take our suggestions. But yeah, no, there's definitely, I think the IEP process has been needing to be read for some time, so.
Well, thanks for taking the initiative on our behalf. That's exciting.
It is exciting.
There's a breakout group that I was in happened to have Dr. Hanscom and a special education teacher from the middle school, which that's their thing. I mean, this is not my thing. I have to really read this document and really get into this to be able to find feedback.
You have a nice fresh lens.
I guess I did. It's called ignorance.
Can't wait to hear more.
Yes, we'll keep you updated. So.
Thank you.
Dr. Curley, can I add one thing too? Is that okay?
Absolutely.
Oh, it's creepy, right, when I talk? Mr. Myers, I'm on the committee as well, and I'm serving as a dual, but primarily I'm serving as a parent on the committee as well.
Thank you.
Thanks, Hope.
Sure.
Thank you, Hope.
I love seeing her big face up there. Come on, just stay there. It's like,
She pops up
yeah,
and
it's
then
like
she goes away.
when she pops up, it feels like you're here.
Yeah, that's a lot of hope for all y'all, so I'll just shut off my camera now, but I'm here.
And just before I know we're late, but you do have the athletic director's page in here, which does have some good recognitions. I don't know what they're reading. But just to point out on our outreach coordinator's report, Consuelo is doing an outstanding job of developing just sort of outside of the box partnerships and opportunities for our students. And one of the things is the robotics club is practicing in the back room. I believe we're going to be able to move the 3D printer more into the window to sort of be on display and as a way to sort of inform and have visitors be more involved. We did, I think Dr. Hanscom preliminarily had a conversation today with the public library, and we're going to end up with a partnership where the public library is open Monday through Friday, but on Saturday and Sunday, our hashtag We're Mashpee will be the site that you can go and pick up your pre-ordered books that the Mashpee Public Library will have. So that's another way to get people to come into the site as well. So there's just a lot of, Consuelo just has ideas left, right, every time you talk to her. So she's really growing through the COVID, experiences. That's not holding her back in any way.
So I had a question. I'm maybe the last person in Ashby who has basic cable and gets the Ashby TV station on cable, the local access cable station. Are we doing anything? Because I believe Channel 22 is supposed to be the educational channel, and it's basically nothing there.
Yeah, that's something we can definitely have consider. We had a meeting, it's been a couple of years though, since we met with Bill May about that, and sort of getting that going. So she has a lot of great ideas that could be housed on that channel.
All right, well, at least there's a population of women that are watching.
Even if you have better than basic cable, you get that channel. Everyone who has cable gets that channel. Just fun fact.
You don't have basic cable, you can actually watch it.
Well, unfortunately, I only have basic cable for the local access channels only. I use another provider for his
Oh,
address.
okay, because I was about to think your house was really lame.
You've been talking to my kids?
I was like, those poor children.
Moving right along.
I have one quick question though on Consuelo's report here about the social media and the following them. She has an asterisk on the LinkedIn. I might, does anyone know what that is the first two, like why that one's asterisk or?
The LinkedIn,
Yeah. Any significance to it?
I don't know why it's that.
Okay. Yeah, just out of curiosity. Sure. Interesting to see what's on the LinkedIn. I really don't have one.
Yeah, she's been using that as the alumni network,
Oh, okay.
kind of graduates.
Okay, at 7:30, Catherine Laurent is going to be standing by for item number 13, the HVAC assessments. Right now we're going to the finance director, Ashley, and we may have to interrupt if we need to read.
You guys have 2 minutes.
So I'm gonna break,
Move to adjourn.
I'm gonna break it in half. So the first section is the FY21 budget update, you'll see that in your packet. And then the COVID spending to date, that has not changed since our last meeting. We have encumbered everything that we needed to date. Nothing has popped up. If anything does, we'll update you in the next meeting. Also, what was left on your table this evening was a 2-page kind of talking point, high-level synopsis of the COVID expenses, our funding, what's going on with the town and our partnership with them, and then also on the other page is the FY22 highlights. This came out of the finance working group. Paul followed up with me this week about it, so this is just something, if you need one piece of paper to talk to someone in town, this would be it.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you.
So, I have a couple of questions, if you don't mind. And you probably answered this before, but, you know, my short-term memory loss sets in the last meeting. So, on page 13, the principal supplies and principal other, the reason that's negative is
The 2020 graduation expense.
graduation.
Those are going to be transferred to the town cares.
Okay. Are you planning to do a budget transfer at the next meeting to clear up some of the negatives? Okay, thank you. And then on page 15, can you tell me, we have Camp Falcon, we have $6,000 budgeted there. And we also have on page 26.
Are you using the numbers up in the corner or the numbers typed?
I'm using the numbers in
The packet.
the
Okay.
packet.
Okay.
Okay. Is it page 20? On another page, I'm looking for it. I thought I'd written it down right.
It is, it's on 26, it's the second line, and it's under regular day wages, system-wide, 38,000.
Yes. Yes, 38,000. So, I was familiar with the 38,000. I wasn't, I guess, familiar enough with the 6,000. And it caught my eye because, unfortunately, when I reviewed the packet, my printer printed it backwards. So I started with the FY22 budget and I saw it, and then I saw it again when I got to 21. So
I'll dig into it for you, see what's in the 6,000. We didn't have Camp Falcon over the summer, so I'm not sure what those expenditures were from FY20.
Well, I guess I was more concerned with the budget number. I didn't realize it was 44,000
For 22.
for 21.
For 21, it's 38 in the salary line, and then there's the small 6. I'm not sure what that small 6 is. I know the salaries sit in the 38,000,
Okay.
so I'll see what that is.
Okay.
It might just be one-off, like hourly wages.
All right.
It's supplies, okay.
It's supplies.
This is the
Well,
plus.
Like
Okay.
food.
Okay. For some reason, I had it only one thing in the number, but okay.
But it has always been in the 42 to 45 range.
Has it? Okay.
Yeah.
And then, so I guess just a general question in regard to extracurricular stipends, et cetera, for activities that were budgeted but most likely have not or will not occur. Do you have some sense of what that is? Or are you able to come up with some sense of what that will be?
Yes, I could definitely come up and have a number for next meeting. That also layers in the athletics portion as well, and by the December meeting, we should have a better answer on what the athletics will look like too.
Okay.
And I can just, we have sent out letters to all, the bulk of it's at the middle high school. Almost all of the activities that can run are running virtually, subject to participation. So teachers have said, I'm gonna meet from 5 to 6 at night on Zoom, however they're doing it. So the bulk of those activities stipends have gone out,
Okay.
or people have been appointed to them. There's not the same sort of robust after-school program at Quashnet, so there will be some savings there. I think we've only had sort of 2 clubs right now, Code for Girls and something else.
K-Kids.
Oh, K-Kids. And then there's only one after-school activity, virtual. It's an art course that's at Queens. So there will be some savings in those.
Okay. And that also ties into like coaching and et cetera, right?
And just another point that the fall season, the coaching stipends were adjusted downward. It was an agreement, Matt Treveri sort of looked at what would be a normal season, the number of practices, games, and then he looked at the new season, and we took a percentage, I think it might have been like 70, let's see, but anyway, there was a percentage of every stipend is what the coach actually earned.
Okay.
So if there's money there.
Yeah, just we can at some point just give us a sense of how that's doing for us. I would appreciate it. Then on page 30, I think I know the answer to that one already. So I saw, because I was going in reverse order, the circuit breaker was included in the FY22 budget as a credit. I didn't see that unless I missed it when I went through FY21.
It gets netted into, what we do, so when the budget gets put into the system, it gets netted into the out-of-district tuition line. So same thing when we did the FY22 budget, when I put it into Munis, it gets netted against an out-of-district line. And then we charge all of our out-of-district tuitions to those 3 lines, and the town will make a journal entry into circuit breaker. So it's in and out.
Okay, so if I'm looking at page 30, which is probably where that is, right?
Correct.
Which line is it going against?
So depending on the year, we've done it against Mass Public School, the first line, the 9100, and then we've done it also, again, we can do it at any of the 3. It's really where our biggest tuition line is normally where we offset it.
Okay, which most likely will be private schools
For this year.
for this year. And then I guess the 97,000 on page 32 for the circuit breaker reimbursement, that's just what we've received so far
For the first quarter, yes.
for the first quarter of 21. Okay. Thank you. That's all my questions for the budget, this year's budget.
Also in the packet are the grants and our revolving accounts, small changes, but nothing of significance to do.
On the school choice reconciliation, it was my recollection that we weren't going to run any expenditures against that until the very end of the year. But I see that there is a small expenditure there. is there a reason?
To be honest, this was pre-me, but I will look into see what it was, and I will follow up with you.
Jeff, is that the correct, do you recall that also?
No, we've had expenditures in the school choice line before. Little ones that, 'cause I know we talked about it, there was a big one that we would talk about it, but,
Okay.
yeah, I think, I know that we don't take our school choice offset and apply it to the overall budget until the end of the year. But I know for the last couple of years, we've seen expenditures on the school choice.
Oh, I
That
guess
is
the question
true.
is whether.
Looking at FY20, there were small
Yeah.
expenditures. I don't know particularly about this one.
Can I ask one question, on the working group, or the working, finance working group meeting? You already introduced that, right?
So I was just actually gonna bring it up.
Oh, okay.
The packet's a little bit out of order. It should be a little bit further down. Do you wanna go over this now, or do you wanna wait? Do you wanna look?
Did you guys have questions about something you already?
Well, I had a question on page 35. I was confused. Particularly when I was trying to understand the food services.
Yes.
So the 203,000 for salaries, that's from December, from this December to next June?
Oh, I'm sorry. I must have mislabeled it. Let me just get that number for you.
Or was it from June to December?
Let me look for 1 second. Sorry about that.
Is it that the balance that we're gonna continue to charge through?
So from the beginning of the school year until December 30th, it will be approximately $96,000 will be allocated. It's not working. And then from December 31st, my formula looks like it got messed up. Let me fix these for you and I will email them back out. But it's $130,000 will be the food service salary portion.
So this is prospective expenses that would be covered by COVID?
So the ones up until December 30th will be covered by COVID. It's being charged right now to the town. And then after 12/31, hopefully there'll be more COVID funding from the federal government. If not, the committee and administration will have to discuss alternatives for funding that.
Okay.
And that's because we're not charging for food, correct?
Correct, it's free for all students.
And the plan is not to charge for food after December 31st as well?
That is all the way to the end of the school year. We are receiving some reimbursement. We will capture all expenditures to net to zero in the revolving account at the end of the year. So anything above that reimbursement, the town is going to take until December 30th.
So we're gonna get a new number for this section.
Yes, I'll update that, sorry about that.
So we should just ignore that?
You can ignore it for now.
Okay, thank you.
Nicole, did you want to look at the working group or do you want to do?
Yeah, so is that what's next here?
It's in the packet next, it is further down on the agenda.
Oh, okay, my only issue, when we get to this, is there is some language in here that makes it seem like Jeff and I made decisions about these questions, and I don't believe that that's the case. The working group we are not empowered to decide really anything. So I just wanted to point out that when it came to the substitute pay rate, that the verbiage I would use is that we discussed the superintendent's recommendation to increase the substitute pay rate. And that we discussed the 3-year-old preschool program, but I don't think it's, I think in fact we said in the meeting, these are not our decisions, these are, you know, the superintendent's decisions. So I just wanted to clarify that for the committee as you were reading that.
The FY 22 budget is the next portion of my report.
Hey, real quick, actually, this was in the packet, is there anything we need to know about this first?
That's what I'm talking about.
Oh, okay, sorry.
No worries. We were working with the finance working group last week. We had not been updated yet, but we will be meeting with the town on Wednesday, December 9th at 9 a.m. to go over the school budget. So that's the first part of the FY 22 budget. The second part is the detailed line-by-line item of the budget, and then the third part is the narrative. That's been updated. There's been language added to talk about COVID spending, if we are still in COVID when we start the next school year. There's also been new charts added to page 12 in graphs. Are there any questions on those items?
So I do have some questions on the detail budget and then some questions on the summary, but you want to do the detail first? So on page 42, the high school testing, the budget went from 4,800 to 25,000.
That includes AP testing for the students.
Okay, so we're including paying for all of the AP testing in the budget, correct?
Correct.
Okay. I thought that's what it was, but I it's circled. Well, so the same question that I asked before in regard to Camp Falcon. So there's two numbers, so there's 7,000, I think another number on page 58. So the 7,000 is expenses and the other is salaries, right? Okay. On page 46, can you just help me in regard to the technology? So is the 383,000? Well, we're showing nothing budgeted, right?
I know, I'm missing that in my.
I'm missing,
I don't have that either.
On 46?
I think because Don printed his from home, he
Yeah, I
has
have
it.
44 and 45. Yeah, 43.
I agree.
44, 45, 48, 49. Oh, we have 48, 49.
Yeah, we can't follow all of that.
I'm sorry, it's her budget report, page 7, do you have that, or is that on there?
It doesn't look like it was printed.
I'm the only one who had it?
Yes. Let me just get to the line, I can answer it.
Yeah, because you're such a big shot at home with your printer printing everything. The rest of us have to rely on the one printed by the school.
But Ashley has it electronically, she can.
I know.
Do you want to go through it?
Yeah.
Okay.
So we zeroed out the budget for 20, is this because of the offset? Right?
Correct, that's for school choice.
Okay, so I guess it's difficult to have a comparative.
It is.
So separately, can you provide us with a comparative?
What is it saying out there?
So essentially, it looks like there's a 715,000. If you look at the summary sheet, I can do it off that number too, because everyone has that. It looks like there's a $715,000 increase year over year because that $538,000 that we use for school choice gets offset into that line item. We're doing that currently this year in FY21, and we're planning on doing it for FY22. Previously, there have been discussions about starting to move funds into the operating budget for technology. But seeing how we're kind of, COVID happened, we're not sure what the fiscal outlook's gonna be. Using our school choice funds was the route we took for FY '22. In addition to that number, there's also $131,000 worth of capital that if the town moves forward with the capital budget that we requested, that would also come out.
So where are you gonna put the $538,000 offset in?
So it gets zeroed out. So if it's in that technology line, it would get zeroed down or netted down plus the 538. So when you see a munis report, you don't see that full amount that you see in here.
Because right now we're sitting like minus 360-some thousand, right? Because of the offset.
Exactly. And that's been consistent for the last few years.
And that goes back to the earlier discussion. We haven't moved the school choice funds until.
Yeah, correct.
All right. On page 48, somewhere, I think in the note or something, you mentioned transportation going up, school buses were part of it. So I thought we were on a regular schedule of buying buses.
Yeah.
So I shouldn't see that as a big driver year over year, correct?
Correct. There is some increase year to year, like we discussed in the last meeting. It's not a substantial. The biggest part of that transportation increase is the McKinney-Vento. We increased it to, I believe, 100,000. It's not in your packet, I don't think, on your printout.
Well, no, well, it's in my packet, but, so I'm seeing the regular day transportation going from 977 up to 1,040,000. So if it's not driven by buses, what's driving that?
Salaries, their benefits, all of those other contractual obligations we have with the company. They give us a projection. I can bring that in if that will help the conversation.
Okay, so let's see, salary increases that we have to give to the bus drivers.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And then the McKinney-Vento, I guess it's hard to rationalize that because we really don't know what that's going to be. Yeah, we were budgeted 75,000 in 2020, spent 58,000, budgeted the same last year. And I don't know where we are so far this year, because it didn't looks like it's delayed on coming through, right?
Correct. It's hard to compare it to 2020 because it was not a full school year. So we were just projecting an increase for kind of safety. Same thing with our items of tuition, right? You have a little bit of a grace in there.
Okay. Because are we seeing a lot of McKinney-Vento this year because with the remote?
I can't speak to that.
No.
I guess Kathy could
You mean
speak
for
to it.
transportation pieces? Is that what
Yes.
you're asking? For the transportation part?
Yes,
No, we're not seeing any,
okay,
not at all.
all right,
Yeah,
yeah. So,
yeah,
something to keep an eye on.
exactly.
Athletic transportation on page 49, that went up quite a bit. I guess I'm not sure. Are we scheduling games in faraway places again?
So there's a couple of reasons for that. When we included volleyball, so we included transportation for volleyball matches in there that wasn't in for prior years.
Okay, excuse me, we're gonna interrupt this because it's 7:30.
Okay.
We have Catherine waiting. The subject is the appendix 1, 2, and 3, which are the ventilation assessment reports for the 3 schools. And
So, and we do have DPW Director Catherine Laurent with us virtually. I just wanted to say we did receive the 3 reports in early, I believe, October. We did have a debriefing meeting with the engineering company that conducted the assessment. That was on October 28th. The chair was present for that. The union president was there, and all the administrators. Captain Lemaire was there as well, and then the engineers actually walked through. There's obviously in each of these reports, there's that executive summary section in the first 3 pages. One of the outcomes of that meeting was for RISE to come back and basically do an audit of whatever the to-do list was. And I believe, which Catherine can address, I believe that has happened in the 3 buildings in maybe last week, just happened. So I don't know if you have questions about these reports or if you want Catherine to summarize anything. George, you were at the meeting, so if there's anything you wanted to add.
No, they went through pretty much in detail.
So in some cases, well, Catherine, do you want to just give a brief overview of sort of the areas that needed to be addressed?
Sure. So I think for the most part, we are in pretty good condition. We did have a section of classrooms at the Casey Coombs School where the issue wasn't necessarily with the fresh air supply, is with the exhaust. So that is something that we are working on. We've come up with a plan for addressing that. Unfortunately, with everything going on, there are delays in receiving the equipment parts, but we are anticipating that we will have the mechanical air exhaust provided sometime in January. I think we're still working on one classroom space at the high school that, again, similar problems just with getting the required parts. As Patty mentioned, we did have RISE Engineering out last week and this Tuesday to check spaces where we were a little bit low in terms of meeting code requirements, and then also checking an additional 10% of the spaces, including the cafeterias and gyms. And so I'm anticipating we'll have those results back probably after Thanksgiving.
And Catherine, those classrooms you talked about at Coombs School, the teachers have been advised of sort of the workaround. So those classrooms, their windows have been open and their doors are shut. Is that correct?
That is correct. So just to provide some exhaust, just natural exhaust, that was the recommendation of RISE Engineering. Most of our HVAC is generally designed that you keep your windows closed, but to make sure that we are providing some exhaust. That was the recommendation for those particular areas. And I'll also mention, again, I think as required in the MOA with the Teachers Association and as recommended by the CDC and RISE Engineering, all of the filters have been replaced with MERV 13, which are designed specifically for recirculating air. So we are taking that extra step and are replacing them quarterly to make sure that we are, maintaining the best level of air quality in the classrooms.
Anyone have any questions for Catherine?
Hey, Catherine, it's Jeff. Just real quick question about, is there going to be any need or changes that are going to be required to the HVAC setup as we move into the colder season and have to close the windows?
So again, the systems are designed so that the windows, to operate the most efficiently with the windows closed. We have been opening the windows, but as we get into the cooler months, that leads to comfort issues. So depending on, I think, day to day, we'll make that call, and then we'll also ramp down on right now the systems we have an override to bring in 100% fresh air. So for similar reasons, as we get into the colder months, that will be adjusted so that we don't
caused problems with the HVAC system and freezing of units.
But as we clamp down on the makeup air and close the windows, are we still going to be able to meet the requirement for like air exchanges in the rooms and all that kind of stuff?
Yes, so the systems aren't normally designed to bring in 100% fresh air. That is an override that we made. So between the MER 13 filters that all of the units have been upgraded to, we will still meet the requirements.
Well, thank you.
And we also talked about that the rooms at Coombs that aren't getting their parts till January, that do need to keep the window open, or some sort of space heater, adding heat to the room that way.
My question is, has the teachers union expressed any concerns about the reports or anything contained in them?
No, so every member received the reports, and like I said, Mary Stickley was part of the debriefing, and we meet every other week, and there have not been issues raised. Just, wherever there were things that needed to be done, making sure that they got done, and they were. And then, like I said, the teachers or staff members in the rooms that impacted by the at Coombs were told months ago, sort of, keep your door shut and keep your window open.
No, I think I'm okay on this.
Okay, I guess we're done. Thank you very much, Catherine, for joining us this evening.
Thanks, Catherine.
Thank you.
Thanks, Catherine.
Thanks, Catherine.
Welcome. Have a good night.
You too.
Same to you. Happy Thanksgiving.
Nothing to have to do, so.
Okay. Back to Don, you were having questions, so let's finish up with yours before we move on to anyone else that might have a question.
So, let me see if I have any other. I do have some questions in regard to some of the non-union personnel, but I think we'll have to cover that in executive session. Let me see if I have anything else.
I can address it at a high level. If you look at the summary sheet, you'll see a 10% increase in the system-wide administration line. That does include a full-time director of finance for FY22, which was not included in prior years. And it also includes the food service director salary.
Okay.
So that's a large portion of
Yeah.
that increase.
I noted those. That doesn't cover the questions that I had, but I think that has to be covered in the executive session. And so I would leave that to the chair at an appropriate time that we could cover that.
You can also, if you'd like to send me an email, I can share a detailed explanation or whatever specific question you're looking for. I can share.
Okay.
But we did decide not to get into the nuts and bolts of non-union salary increases. Last year with the determination was that the superintendent and administration get a chunk of salary money dispersed basically.
So
Not a Freudian slip.
So is that chunk of money consistent with this year?
I don't know, I'd have to ask, but we kind of gave a rough idea out there that it should be the same as the average contractual increase per person. So if whatever the contractual average per person was, say it was $5 and there's 15 non-union, then we would have a budget of that average times the number of people that were non-union. If it's falling outside of that, then we should have a discussion, but otherwise.
One of the other pieces is the FY21 budget was already finalized before the salary changes were made. So you approved the FY20 budget in January, but those salary changes happened after that. So when you look at FY '21 in this budget document versus FY '22, and you see larger variances, it's because that salary, that updated salary was not captured in that line.
And that's one of the reasons we did it, because it was kind of an invisible
So those are not,
line.
so the year-over-year change compared to the budget is exasperated by that.
Exactly.
All right.
And the
That
amount,
may explain it.
and then the amount that was approved, sort of, you can't go above that, we were under that in terms of dispersing the pool of money.
Okay, I'll cover that separately. Thank you. That's it.
Okay. What, first of all, anything else?
I just wanted to ask, if you get a chance to review the chart from the very last page that we've changed out,
Yeah.
because when we go on the 9th of December, and I know it's still my budget, we're going to give out folders that have this narrative in it. So it's kind of like, if you don't want to change, if you want to change the chart between now and the 9th, let us know what you'd like it to say.
So the one issue that I got with that chart, if you're talking about the rate of growth one,
Yes.
page, what is it? 71, right? We shouldn't start with a base of -2.
I can
Right,
do that.
right?
It would just give it a, I
I
can do that.
know. The other thing, I guess, just at a high level, that I was looking for, and I did not see, was really a brief explanation, 2, 3 sentences of, what's driving your budget? What are the significant things? As I look at, the increase compared to last year, we're at 3.29 versus 2.71.
Well, if you look on that 2-page summary that Ashley gave out tonight, that 3.29 does not include the removal of 131,000 in capital that we anticipate getting pulled out, so the increase is 2.72.
Okay.
You see at the bottom of that second sheet.
But when you, I guess, go to present this, that's not clear in your document, I believe, or maybe it is. Did I see it somewhere?
Well, it's really just on the 8th page, page 70.
Page 70?
My document has 2 budget.
Mine does too.
It's gone.
Yeah.
The gremlins are in the pocket. It should
Yeah.
be something.
The bullets at the top. I know what you're talking about, like, how do we explain the increase?
Right.
Yeah, we used to have a couple sentences in the budget message, the one on page 65 that said, the increase is attributed to X, Y, and Z. And we kind of say it in these bullets, and I think we sort of notionally know what the reasons are, but we used to spell it out in the.
We could add something into that page 65 one.
I don't know if we did it last year, but the first year we did. We sort of had a talking point there.
Right, so this is a quick summary of the drivers.
Right.
And I think that the stuff that's provided on this paper, that's powerful stuff at the bottom there that we should definitely throw in there somewhere. Because it kind of throws the onus back on the town. Hey,
CIP,
I'm sorry?
about the CIP piece,
Yeah, the technology CIP.
because that is highlighted on, wherever the expense sheet is. It's, page 72 of the packet.
Yeah, look at the bottom, I didn't see anything about the CIP. under
That
F.
did used to be in there, okay.
Yeah.
So when we did draft the memos to send over to the town, we did highlight it, it is included, we broke it down, same way I did it in your one page. We can highlight it more in the budget narrative and then change it as we find out if that CIP does get approved.
I mean, I think it'd be perfect to just put it in F, the exact same thing you said, because that's what you put that there for, to explain increases.
Right, I think that's where it used to be, I remember
Yeah,
something about
well, I think we had a very similar comment last year.
Just a comment on page 64. For the middle high school, I don't want to diminish what they've accomplished, but we are getting a little dated in regard to the football championships.
Hey, those stay for life, those are important.
They're there forever, but they're getting a little dated. Hopefully they'll get some new ones soon.
I respectfully disagree only because the way that we're trying to present this, these graphs and stuff, is to explain what we've accomplished with not having, exponentially growing budgets. So I think that, I agree with you, we shouldn't have stuff that's 15 years old, but 2017 was unfortunately only 3 years ago. It seems like 10.
Oh, 4 years now. Just another editorial comment on page 68. I got lost with all those lines. So if you're doing this in color, maybe you can find different colors for your org chart.
We can change it.
Huh?
We can change it up.
Because
Nicole already brought that up.
Yeah,
okay,
I hate it too.
I reiterate Nicole's.
I'll go back.
All things
They're major cash lines, they're always fun.
Because when I first looked at it, I thought that Mark was reporting to Ashley now, so which was news to me. But
Congratulations.
or condolences, whichever. Right? So is the presumption for FY22 that there is no remote learning?
No COVID.
No COVID.
That's not what I asked.
Yeah, no remote learning.
No remote learning, and no remote learning option?
We're not gonna go in the direction of starting to offer 1 or 2 students remote learning when the rest of the students are in. Because once we get back to normal, the best learning opportunity for students is in person. So we're not going to go in that direction. I mean, we always make accommodations for certain situations, but no.
Okay.
Well, we did talk about no snow days.
We talked about no snow days, but that's not the same thing as remote. And that was really only focused on for this year.
Oh.
And we will hopefully have at least 1 snow day because it's called the mental health day. We talked about that today with the Old Colony superintendents as well. You have to look at a lot of variables if you're going to make it an actual remote learning day. Whether staff is able to access it, whether students are able to access, there's just a lot of layers to that, and you want to be able to support all of your employees, your hourly employees. It's not clean cut. But for this year, we have the option of making our snow days a remote learning day. I'm not sure that that's something the Department of Ed is going to continue on with in the future year of non-COVID.
Or a hybrid model? So it will be a total, just like it was last year, where every student is expected to be in person in class.
Yes, this is not the highly desirable model for learning what we have this year. It's what we have to do for COVID, but in person is the best.
I appreciated the graph at the bottom of page 74. I was kind of also though trying to figure out, because there are support staff also that are changing, I believe, based on what it looked like in the budget, but I have no idea what those numbers are. Is there a way to present a total personnel number?
teachers or total personnel for that.
I mean, I think teachers are clearly one of the biggest drivers, but, I don't know what other people think.
The teachers are more directly tied with your total enrollments above. Your support personnel is a little bit more flexible from year to year depending on the student needs, so we would, that'd be a correlation.
Yeah, that's an interesting point, because you're not, it's not apples to apples kind of thing. Yeah.
But they're only expenditures above.
Yeah, this is really in direct response to the FinCom and the folks looking at our budget that are always talking about enrollment numbers. And so I think showing that our number of teachers really corresponds to our, I mean, it's our salaries that are driving our year-over-year increases, not the.
Right, but they're part of the salary, so, the number of paraprofessionals that you have are gonna go down also.
Yeah, but to Patty's point, like some of that's cohort based, right? So you might have a year where you have maybe more kids on IEPs or more student services, but maybe the next year you don't. It's not as, I don't see it as a function of those contractual increases that we're paying each year for the teachers.
I mean, they're one piece of that rate of the actual expenditures year to year. There's a lot of other variables within that number too, also.
I mean, I think
80% of our
Right,
Yes.
salaries.
is salaries, right? And we're presenting, I don't know, what, 60% of it? Or no, 70, between 70 and 80, 90, well, administrative salaries are calculated like 7% or 8%. I guess I was trying to fill the gap so that I
And
saw
Ashley,
what the
this
total was.
bottom chart you took from DESI's data?
Yes, and I confirmed it with ours.
So that's what DESI shows is just that?
These are all,
Right, so that was, the exercise was to make sure we could tie back to a document if a town's member was gonna go look for something, that this was the information that was provided.
I'll just leave that on my wish list.
well, maybe it would be interesting to see Millie embrace it, but I think that makes good sense to leave this. I wouldn't swap it out without.
No, I'm fine with leaving that there and maybe separately seeing, I don't need to see 10 years, but, at least a year-over-year total number, because I don't know what that total number is.
Not total employees.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you? I mean,
Well, I mean, the way that I keep looking at this, and Patty and I have had these discussions for 4 years or whatever since we started doing the narrative, is we're trying to tell a story. A visual story to prevent an hour-long meeting with Chairman Cotton to become a 2-hour.
Right.
And if we're telling the story, I would rather not dig into the weeds on these charts. They should be as general as we could possibly get them to match this flat line, but this is going down, ding, 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 ding. Because this is the first question that we get every one of those meetings, right? Your enrollment's going down, why is your budget going up?
Well, exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, I sat on that side of the.
I know. And you answer those questions too.
Well, and I asked that exact question, right? How do you correlate that? What's driving the tax? And you're right. I mean, there are contractual salary obligations that are going up, but then your student population is going down.
And we talked about this too. There's several indications in here about the social emotional needs and even the COVID stuff and out of school district or out of district stuff. I think we have plenty of information to do it. But again, my point was, if we're not telling the right story, then I think that we can definitely request Ashley update it. I am happy. I agree with you. It'd be nice to see maybe how we're looking overall as a district, because it's true if the teachers are going down, but the rest of the district is going up, that's a different story. So, anyway, I will reserve the rest of my comments, George, at the second time.
Yes.
I just have a question on the talking points that you had given us. Is the under salaries for Unit A, are we allowed to say how many of our teachers, like what proportion of our teachers are at step 15 or above, and what?
Yes,
Yeah.
I broke that in previous districts.
Okay, I think that would be helpful to this, just so that that's another part of the story, right? Is the tenure of our teachers, and that drives a lot of our salary increases as well.
Right, and it's not just the COLA increase, it's also that jump between the steps, the shifts between the lanes,
Yeah.
it's all of that rolled into.
That was the only thing that
I love this stuff.
very nice.
Any other questions on the superintendent's presentation to the town on December 9th, I believe it is?
So I believe that you, as well as Nicole, were planning to attend.
I would like to. I didn't know what the date was, so.
Oh, it's, okay,
I'm unable to attend.
and Ashley and I
The one point that I would make on page 71, we should partner the staff reductions on the personnel budget. I don't believe we have any footnote. You have footnotes there in regard to adding the director of finance, but you don't have any footnotes in regard to the changes, particularly in Ashnet. Okay, so just show the things that we're doing to control the budget, please.
The other thing I think we don't really have to have a discussion on tonight, but on FY21, which is on the back side of the FY22 thing, it's a 2-page document of what additional expenses are going to be happening coming up for the rest of the year. And at this point, I think we have to assume that the federal government isn't going to do anything. Maybe they will, but if they don't, how are we going to approach this? We can do a variety of ways, including going back to the town asking for additional money in the April budget, April town meeting. So I'd just like the committee to think over what options they think they might like to pursue for discussion at the next meeting, because by December, hopefully we would know what the federal government might be doing. And that's a Hail Mary pass, but we should be at least in a position at that point in time to start discussing.
Well, it's definitely a conversation that I would have with the town manager as well, because he knows that there's that, they have it as well in terms of where all of this going to come. So I think there would be problem solving from their side with us. There was talk.
I'm sorry.
No, I was just gonna say, there was talk today on the Old Colonies, they were hearing, and yes, it's gonna be the new administration, so they had certain thoughts with that, but that they were gonna extend the 12/30/20 cutoff and allow you to continue spending through June 30th, because there's money that you, and Ashley can speak to that, but you have to produce, the expenses incurred up to that point against the money, and then the money's gonna go back if you haven't, and so there was enough on the town prior, if they would just extend that you could spend it till June 30th, we'd all be much better off.
There are a lot of communities across the state that have funding that they're not able to spend down, either the resources aren't coming in on time. For us, for instance, we have Chromebooks that are ordered, but we haven't received them. So there's conversations of, can we actually use that money that we allocated to those Chromebooks, or does it dry up and we have to give the money back? And same thing with some of these other communities who receive federal funds, but they're also getting 75% reimbursed of those funds through FEMA. So they're able to use those funds again and allocate it to something else. So it's really important for the school districts and the towns to be in constant communication, which we are, to see what they have, the resources that we can tap into until at least December 30th.
Well, that's good news. I vote for that one.
Makes it a lot easier, yes.
Yeah, but I guess the other obvious options are, we're always giving money back to the town at the end of the year, that we could draw against those stuff that goes back and, but I don't know if we should be really discussing it until they make a decision on that. It seems like that's gonna happen soon, I would guess.
Obviously, we're getting close to December 30th, it takes someone to make some determination.
I know one thing we can do in the interim, or we can discuss the next meeting, is talking about raising our school choice fund for.
Raise the floor, okay.
As a counterpoint to, how we offset, we can say now we raise the floor to X money from COVID, and then when things go back to status quo, we can lower that money too. I know that's mostly a symbolic gesture, but, it kind of lets them know that we're trying to plan in advance, and instead of going back to a special town meeting, we have the ability to draw our own funds that are available if we just keep your hands out, for a year.
Okay, any other questions for Ashley, FY 21 or 22 or?
Well, she has the food services chart if you have a question.
Sorry.
No. The final report I have is the food service report. This is document I believe you saw in prior years. Gus updated it for us through the end of October. Some key information here. As you can see, we're not looking to receive a lot of revenue through the end of the year. You can see up in the top section that we had a deficit at the end of 6/30 that was offset with CARES Act funding, mostly from the town. And then going forward, like I mentioned earlier, any revenue we receive, we will take those expenses in-house, and anything over that will go to the town through December 30th. Going forward, Gus is projecting about $41,000 until December. You can see the meal counts. It's been a great option this year. Kids are taking advantage of it. It's a really great program that's going on, especially considering the climate that we're in. One thing to note on here, there is a school lunch debt section, and that's, for instance, if a kid comes and wants to just buy a milk and doesn't have the funds to pay for that. So there is still debt that is occurring during the day, but it's not very much.
They need to just take the whole bag lunch that comes with the milk.
Would you say?
They need to just take a whole bag lunch that comes with the milk. Then they wouldn't incur any debt. They could give it away to a friend.
So,
I'm a little confused on this report though, because it shows a net balance of $840.
Correct.
How do you get to that? Because I look at revenue of $8,000, $8,600, expenses of $43,000. How do I get to $840?
The $41,000 he adjusted in there. It's not up top. It's that net not posted. That estimate is included to get to that 840. I believe it's the discussion we had earlier. We did
I
last
think
week.
that gets, there it is.
Let me get the document for a second. All of it.
While she's opening it, Patty, what happened to attempting to get the town to pick up the benefits for the food service workers?
That hasn't moved forward yet.
No?
No.
They are holding them currently because of COVID. Nothing's getting pushed back to us as it stands, except for that amount that we receive in reimbursement. But they're holding on to that right now.
I mean like the Medicare and the health insurance.
They're holding on to it. Because we do not have, we don't have the revenue source that will be able to support.
But they're picking up the food services structure, right? Because it's on the, so it's only the other individuals, right?
Well, there are also staff, so it's a food service director, and then there are staff throughout the buildings.
Right.
But they, are you talking about the benefit side of it?
Yeah.
I don't know who has benefits, to be honest, I can look into that. I don't know if they're under the threshold or not.
If we don't,
Okay, we have down here subcommittees and working group.
Sorry, George, I do have a question.
Oh, so, sorry.
Just quickly, on the bottom half of this, so I understand our enrollment numbers. Current free students are basically kids who are taking a lunch, since everybody's free. We have 476 students that are actually taking meals.
So I believe that's based on, like when they do their checks of the students, that they come back out. I believe that's what that number is. So like the system will say this child's a free, this child's a reduced, outside of this being a totally free program.
Oh, okay.
Those are the ones that qualify.
Right.
So if these are, well, but what does that have to do with anything this year?
It doesn't. I think it's just something that they're still tracking. So the state's still tracking it, and Gus still has to do it. So it's just a part of his reporting.
So we don't really know, this meals served? What is that?
So through 10/31, he served 827 breakfasts at KCC.
That doesn't have any correlation with it.
Right. So these are subsections on their own. They're not a line across.
Very independent.
Yeah. I can put some boxes around that, maybe make them more defined.
I guess I was just looking for, I was just curious what the number of students were that were actually participating in our lunch program, our breakfast and lunch program right now, and that number's not on here.
Just the sole number, so if that kid has breakfast and lunch, I mean, yeah, I understand.
I've got meals, but I don't have kids.
Yep.
Okay, that's what I was confused about. Okay.
You need that next box filled.
Yeah, and so the free students and the reduced students, those are our children that would be getting free or reduced lunch if we were charging for lunches.
Mhm.
But that has no bearing on anything else.
Right.
Okay.
Okay, we have another block down here.
Thank you.
Shout out from the finance working group. Yeah.
That was that memo we already talked about. If you want to
The
go
whole
over
thing.
it in detail, we can.
Okay. Thank you. Anything else from finance working group? All right, we are past already the time for adjournment by 10 minutes.
Is there any issue with tabling section 12?
Not by me.
I'm fine
Just want to make sure
tabling
there's no
that,
like
yeah.
timing issue we have to.
That's fine, because
I know
there's
we could
a lot to go through in that.
table the policy subcommittee to the next meeting.
Motion's been made. Is there a second to that motion?
I'll second it.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion on the motion? Deborah?
I would like to disagree with tabling the last bullet point thing. Because that's actually referring an action item to the policy subcommittee.
We already took that up. It's not a vote. Kathy can take it. There was no policy impact by the.
Nope.
And there was a resolution.
Yeah, we reviewed the policy that we were concerned about in terms of curriculum. And we kind of went through it, made sure that the wording in the policy that we currently have aligned with the changes we made to the resolution. And what we read, what we saw, there was nothing out of alignment with the change we made to the resolution to make it specific to Mashpee or what the policy on curriculum was.
And the impact of the resolution itself and what it says, the specific one you were looking at, which was curriculum, I don't think it's IJ. We looked at all of the language in there and we did not, the policy subcommittee didn't feel that there was anything that needed to be changed in that policy to capture the action steps of the resolution.
Okay, well, let's table it and whole
you're gonna take,
section,
okay, fine.
we'll talk about next time.
Well, in fairness, it would be great if you could follow up directly with Kathy and Patty to
Yeah,
to
I
understand
will.
your concerns so that we don't have to do this full committee thing if you're the one that has the question.
Well, I was looking, yeah, if they've looked at it, and they've come to a conclusion,
Yeah, if you're not satisfied after that conversation, then,
yeah, then we'll
Yeah.
come back.
okay, thank you.
Okay.
We have a motion on the floor with a second. Is there any further discussion on the motion? Seeing none, how do we vote? Kathy?
Yes.
Jeff?
Yes.
Don?
Yes.
Yes.
Cole? And George, yes. And the only other item down here is on item 13, the Mashpee bullying prevention. I would entertain a motion to table that to our next meeting also.
Make a motion to table the review of the Mashpee bullying prevention and intervention plan update to the next meeting.
Okay, motion made by Don, is there a second?
Second.
Motion made and seconded, any discussion, Don?
I just was curious, is this our annual,
Well, we have to update it every 2 years. I will tell you there was minimal changes and it was reviewed by the admin team. So,
okay, I just want to make sure it wasn't something that was waiting for us to approve.
no, and we've already approved it. It's very minor changes.
Okay.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Seeing none, Kathy?
Yes.
Jeff?
Yes.
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 And George, yes. That was unanimously. Ding. There's no public comment. And no other items. Is there any other business to come before the committee this evening? Hearing none, the meeting is adjourned at 8:11. Thank you all, and happy Thanksgiving.
Yes.